Hey everyone, it's Leanne here. Welcome to another video on my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you how I created a birthday card for my dad, so a male-centric card, and I'm going to use a combination of supplies. So I'm using an A2 card base to start, cut out a cardstock, and a piece of mixed media paper, and this measures 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, so it gives a little bit of a border to the background. We're going to use distress inks. I'm using tumbled glass as the color and a round blending tool. I'm using Post-it tape, and I will be using the Mum and Me stamp set from Fawn, and this came out earlier this year for Mother's Day. I'm going to use the 2 foxes from that stamp set, and then from the Dad and Me stamp set from Father's Day, I'm going to use the Dad sentiment. So to begin, I'm going to use the mixed media paper, and I'm just going to tape that down so it doesn't shift when I stamp on it. I'm using mixed media paper because I want to do blending, and I also want to do COPIC coloring. And for that, I'm going to use Memento Tuxedo Black ink because that's safe to use with the Copic markers. So I'm stamping the adult fox first and finding the center of the page and just putting it a little bit to the left and stamping that down. For the baby fox, it will be a little bit lower so it looks like it's a little bit more in the foreground, but beside the dad fox. So now I'm taking Post-it tape and I want to mask off the background, the horizon line, so that I can do the blend of the distress ink from that horizon line. Now to mask out my foxes, I don't have any masking paper, so I had to improvise. I'm putting Post-it tape together, and I put a piece of just regular tape to hold that together and stamped the image over top. And then the little fox fit on a single piece, so I did that. Now I'm fussy cutting this out. I really dislike fussy cutting. It is the least favorite thing in my life of doing. So I cut these out begrudgingly, but I did want to have them masked, so I cut those out. And with the dad fox, so I stamped this with Memento Tuxedo Black ink just because I had it out on my craft table, but I really should have used Days On ink or something that was that would bond to the tape. So I didn't want it to smear off, so I just took a baby wipe and cleaned off where it had stamped on the tape, because if I didn't, it wasn't dry and it would have just made a mess. But I still had the impression, so I cut out the shapes, and I'm just overlaying the 2 masks on top of where I stamped the little foxes. And so coming in with that round blending tool, I'm just going to very softly and gently work out from the center of the page out towards the edge, doing a sort of a faded edge, a background here. So it creates that horizon line and creates the sky in the background behind the foxes. And then with that tape across the bottom, that'll create the hard edge for the horizon line. And so again, I mentioned using mixed media paper. Mixed media paper works really well with distress inks. Watercolor paper is the best, but because I was stamping on this, watercolor paper has bumps and ridges, so I wanted to get a clean impression, so I found that this was a happy medium paper to use. So the fun part is pulling off the masking and revealing the image that you've worked on. So I'm just pulling off those here, and you can see how the sky is now behind the foxes, but it's all part of the same card. So to color this, I'm using Y21 and then coming in with E31 to do some shadows, and then E15 to deepen the shadows, and then doing little tufts of darkness in the fox's fur, just random little spots, and then blending that out again with Y21. So I'm doing the same treatment here on the fox's head, using that Y21 as the base, and then coming in with E31 to heighten the shadows a bit, and then E15 to just drop a little bit into the shadows to make them a little bit darker, and then just creating that sort of gradiated look that you see when foxes have sort of a mangy fur, or they don't have a clean coat. They live in the wild and have to fend for themselves, so they don't always have smooth colors. So just creating that kind of variegated color. For the white, I'm coming in with a warm gray and a colorless blender. I don't have a lot of gray, so I like to use the colorless blender with a light color, and that works just as well. So it's one way to stretch your markers. So I'm just everywhere that there would be white on the fox, on his little face and on his little belly, and on the tip of his tail is where I put the warm gray. Now to do the darker color, I came in with E19 as the base, and then just deepened those dark colors with E79. And with adult foxes, they have a little bit of darkness on their paws, and then sometimes you'll see it on their tail as well. So just adding that in, And then a little bit of pink on the ears. I dampened that with the yellow at the end there because I found the pink was too bright, and I had the yellow on hand. Now for the baby fox, I'm going to color him exactly the same. I guess I should say her, because I guess that would be me in the card. So the baby fox will be colored the same way, but I'm not going to use the darker colors on the baby fox. Younger animals don't always have their full dark rich coat, so that's going to be the difference between them. So I came in with E15 just to lightly touch up the shadows and bump those up a little bit. But otherwise, this fox stays pretty light, and just a little bit of the warm gray too. So in the white spots, using that warm gray again, but very sparingly. I laid that down first and then just came in and touched it with my colorless blender just to give it a nice smooth edge and gradiate it out into the white part of the paper. Now I'm going to use a micron pen for this part. I'm using a 005, which is I think the smallest that you can buy. And I'm just doing light wispy lines in groups of 3. And this is just to create more of the fur visual texture. And again, sort of that, I don't want to say mangy fur, but that sort of disgruntled fur, like when they've been living in the wilderness a long time and they don't have their smooth coats. So just kind of creating that texture, that visual texture. And I'm doing it on both foxes. And this was actually pretty fun. I don't normally do techniques like this, but looking at the card, it just felt like it needed a little something extra, and I thought that this helped. So now I have the fall stamp set, Jump for Joy, and it has It's Your Birthday in the sentiment, so I decided to stamp that with the dad sentiment, but you could use any stamp you have on hand if it relates to a birthday, or if you're doing a thank you card. This could be given for a variety of reasons, or you could write it too with your micron pen. Now for the background, I'm using a sheet of Recollections paper from Michaels. This is just open stock. And to match up the chevrons so that they're equal, I held my card up to the light and traced around the card on the back of the paper. You can sort of see it there where inside or around that edge where I'm putting my tape roller, just to make sure that when I cut this out that the chevrons would be even on both sides and top and bottom, cutting off in the same part of the pattern. So I brought this to my cutting mat and used my X-Acto knife and my metal ruler and just trimmed along the edges. And so there's my background. And then just testing out how that's going to look when I put that down. I want this card to be very simple, not too embellished or over the top, very classic and clean. So I'm just using a tape roller, no foam tape or anything with this one. And I'm just going to eyeball that and then put it on the center there, push it down into place. Once I feel that it's centered and perfect, and the chevrons actually help you line it up too. When you're trying to eyeball it, you can use that background pattern to really find the center. So the last part is just taping it to a card base. So again, using my tape roller, just going around the edges and then doing an X in the center. And then as always, just to line them up super easy, I put the folded edge to the bottom of my table, line them up with the edges of my hands, and then just push them together. And there you have it. This is my male-centric card, my birthday card for my dad. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe too so you're notified the next time I post a video. Thanks so much for watching.